The disparate treatment of minorities in the American criminal justice system begins at the very first stage of that system, the investigation of suspected criminal activity by law enforcement agents. Police departments disproportionately target minorities as criminal suspects, skewing at the outset the racial composition of the population ultimately charged, convicted, and incarcerated. And too often, the police employ tactics against minorities that simply shock the conscience. Good morning, I'm Ed James, and this is Black Almanac. They stop cars for traffic violations in the hope of discovering more serious criminality. Statistical evidence demonstrates that black motorists are disproportionately stopped for minor traffic offenses because the police assume that they are more likely to be engaged in more serious criminal activity. This, ironically labeled driving while black syndrome, has deleterious effects. It causes a large number of innocent black drivers to be subjected to the hassle and humiliation of police questioning because of a racially motivated traffic stop. My guest today, via satellite from New Haven, Connecticut, Ken Williams, crime scene investigator, expert witness, Sannestine Fortin, Esquire, and Vana Renejuste, Esquire. Mr. Williams, I would like to thank you for agreeing to this satellite interview. Since the last time you appeared on Black Almanac, you've completed your final report on the Rodney Mitchell incident, which leaves me with more questions. But before we get into that report, I would like to ask you, have you done similar cases as the Rodney Mitchell?
Yes, Doctor. There's the D.J. Henry case where I assisted the family with analyzing surveillance tapes from that crime scene, putting together the evidence, the video forensic evidence, and I submitted that back to the family as a service to the family. I've also spoken with and actually met with the Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. family. Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. is out of White Plains. His father was gunned down by White Plains police inside his apartment building. That particular claim is being fought in court today. I have also assisted in Massachusetts a gentleman by the name of Jose Samito, who was wrongfully arrested. He was imprisoned by the Brockton Police Department for issues that the city of Brockton is still trying to this very day to keep from coming to light. So I do have some experience with trying to assist people who have not seen justice, just like the Rodney Mitchell family is receiving down in Sarasota.
To the case at hand, has there been a crime committed here?
Based on my analysis of what has occurred in Sarasota, yes. There is a situation where, as we discussed before, if you omit facts, your outcomes are going to be different. And in the case of Sarasota Sheriff's Office, they have omitted certain facts, they have omitted certain testimony, and it has tainted the outcome, in my belief, the outcome of their investigation, and they need to re-examine what they have going on down there.
Let's look at, take us, if you will, through a timeline from that fateful night in June in 2012.
Certainly. For police to stop a citizen, there has to be probable cause. In the state of Florida, you're a primary seatbelt law state. So in your particular case, Deputy Shaw, he believed he witnessed a seatbelt violation, and that's his perception. But when the vehicle was stopped a short distance later and he walked up to the window, he realized at that point in time Mr. Mitchell was actually seatbelted in the car. So his probable cause to stop that vehicle evaporated instantly. The officer had a chance to maybe ask some challenge questions to see if he could revive his probable cause to stop the vehicle, but he didn't do that. The sergeant, Deputy Sergeant Sassy, arrives on scene, faces the vehicle, which in itself constitutes basically a seizure. But the sergeant can't articulate in his reports, his sworn testimony to the Sarasota Sheriff's Office, he is unable to articulate why the Deputy Shaw is actually stopping the vehicle, and then after they stopped the vehicle, why they continued the investigation if there was no crime, they had no probable cause. The citizen should have been released forthwith, but you have Deputy Sergeant Sassy brandishing a firearm, pointing the firearm muzzle at a citizen that is wearing a seatbelt, so there's no probable cause there. And you have Deputy Shaw at the driver's side window that's looking in the vehicle, can see a seatbelt is on. So he understands that there's no probable cause to continue with the intrusion at that moment in time. Now, the witness statements in the timeline that I want to address are that there is a key eyewitness that actually is not in the car. He is not with the sheriff's department. He's just a witness that's walking across the street. According to his sworn testimony, this key eyewitness says the car did not move. What he did see is a left hand of Mr. Mitchell in a non-threatening gesture out the window, and then shots were being fired into the vehicle, and then the vehicle moved, which is very, very different from what the officers have reported in their sworn testimony. The officers have reported, and the Sarasota Sheriff's Office has adopted the fact that the car moved, and that caused the officers to react, and shots were fired. But this witness, he reports completely different facts.
Let's talk about that witness. Has the Sheriff's Office seen this witness or taken testimony from this witness?
This witness did cooperate with the Sheriff's Office just hours after the event, did provide a sworn testimony to what he witnessed, and did state to the Sarasota Sheriff's Office that he did not see the vehicle move until after shots were fired, and then after that, the vehicle careened out of control down the street, ended up at the Sunoco. That was his testimony.
I have not seen, as I looked through your report and some other things, that initially the Sheriff's Office did not talk about this witness.
Well, the thing that's interesting about this key witness is the information that he has provided to the Sarasota Sheriff's Office is consistent with the physical evidence of Mr. Rodney Mitchell's injuries. Mr. Rodney Mitchell was shot through the hand. The projectile continued and entered his left area of his temple, where it incapacitated him immediately. So the witness to not have seen a news report, not to have had information from other witnesses or potential witnesses to discuss the fact that Mr. Rodney Mitchell's hand was outside, the left hand was outside the window, means that this witness is extremely credible. And for whatever reason, I have no idea why the Sarasota Sheriff's Office would keep this type of information from the public, but it's critical as far as showing, in my mind and what I've seen, that a crime was committed here.
One of the things that we've been told, and through information from the Sheriff's Office, is that Mr. Mitchell, when asked to, by his own department, when the IA Internal Affairs investigator was talking to Mr. Shaw, and he asked him to describe Mr. Mitchell, he described Mr. Mitchell at that time as having on a white T-shirt when he was making this initial stop. But you found
that again
something.
Goes towards the that again goes towards the veracity of the officer under direct questioning. If his principal reason for stopping a citizen who's driving down a public roadway, isn't committing a crime, isn't suspected of committing a crime, he witnesses what he believes, his perception is, a seatbelt violation, you would think that the officer, after even stopping the vehicle, after shooting inside the vehicle, and after witnessing someone, they're no longer here, you would think that the officer would be able to describe in detail to substantiate the probable cause he had to stop the vehicle. In this particular case, he couldn't even describe that Mr. Mitchell wasn't wearing a T-shirt. He described Mr. Mitchell as wearing a T-shirt, which is outrageous when you think about the fact that the stop occurred based on a seatbelt violation, and the death of a young man is based on the fact that a young man was wearing a seatbelt, but the officers shot and killed him.
So are you saying that what they discovered when they looked into the car, that there was no white t-shirt that on Mr. Mitchell? Mr. Mitchell was bare-chested with nothing on?
Bare-chested, nothing on. The officers weren't able to describe any features of Mr. Mitchell whatsoever. They only described him as a black male. And they had ample light that they actually introduced to the scene prior to the shots being fired, which gave them full detail of what Mr. Mitchell looked like and the fact that he was wearing a seatbelt. When Mr. Mitchell's remains were recovered from the vehicle, he was wearing a seatbelt.
How does your report differ from their expert's report?
The expert report prepared for the Sarasota Sheriff's County Office does not detail the fact that there is this witness, this key eyewitness out there with certain pertinent facts, which he is saying, this particular witness, based on what he saw, the vehicle was not moving. If the vehicle is not moving before the shots are fired, and if, based on the physical evidence which substantiates what this witness says, the left hand is outside the window off of the steering wheel, and that after the shots were fired, Mr. Mitchell is incapacitated and then the vehicle moves forward, that is a very, very major issue for the Sarasota Sheriff's Office with respect to their physical reconstruction of this case. If you omit those findings and you discredit that witness and you credit the statements by Deputy Shaw and Sergeant Sassy instead, then that in itself is covering up a crime.
It's interesting, the timelines now. The attorneys were able to get from the sheriff's office typed transcripts. But the videos from that same sheriff's office show something entirely different. Can you speak to that?
Well, the transcripts themselves, the Sarasota Sheriff's Office hasn't authenticated. They haven't. At the end of a transcript, just to have you understand, at the end of a transcript, you usually identify who the person is that has basically been the stenographer of the transcript so that you can cross-examine that person later on. The Sarasota Sheriff's Office is even withholding the information on who the people are that transcribed the audio tapes and the videotapes from these sworn testimonies from these different officers and different witnesses. But beside that, it still comes down to the fact that in order for police to stop and detain, arrest a person, you either have to have probable cause, or you have to have a crime, or you have to have, you're trying to protect citizens from a crime being committed. Mr. Mitchell, at the end of the day, had a seatbelt on, so there was no probable cause for the stop of the vehicle. Once officers walked up to the window and saw him belted in. For them to continue the detention of Mr. Mitchell, they needed to go and be able to articulate a reasonable suspicion of a crime. And in their reports, the only thing that Deputy Sassy can say in his report is that his perception was they were up to no good, which is absurd because that's not how police articulate reasonable suspicion.
Now, it's also interesting when we talk about the car shooting across the highway. So if we were to believe the report as done by the sheriffs, Mr. Mitchell somehow turned the wheel and started running across lanes of traffic on the highway. But in fact, it appears from your findings that that was a dead man's foot on the accelerator at the time.
When a person's shot in the head, they usually don't survive those type of wounds. In the case of Mr. Mitchell, he was incapacitated at the time that he was shot in the hand, and the projectile continued, entered the left temple, and shut down the computer of his brain.
It's final minute, is there anything else that you would like to add before I let you go?
Certainly. I mean, it's very important, I believe, that officers that are in the field, I mean, I'm a retired police officer. I think it's very important that in order to go and ensure that the public continues to trust in the institution, to trust the people that are sworn to uphold laws and protect citizens, that everyone inside the institution, if I'm seeing these type of things and I'm an outsider looking in and seeing these type of things that aren't reasonable, I'm a very reasonable person, and I'm able to analyze it and see things that are criminal, unreasonable, and don't make sense, it leads one to believe what the heck is going on in Florida if they can't figure these things out for themselves.
Mr. Williams, thank you so much for sharing with us again, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, sir.
Well, ladies, you've heard what your investigator had to say, and I think it's important that at this point I want to share with our viewing audience that we have extended an offer to the Sarasota County Sheriff to come on this program to discuss this case, and he has not. Matter of fact, his public information officer said, while it is regrettable that Mr. Mitchell lost his life, the facts of this case confirmed that he chose to disobey the lawful commands of the deputies. This has been established through our investigation, the independent incident analysis of the physical evidence, and the state attorney's office review. We are confident that any future litigation will further clarify that the incident was a lawful use of deadly force. Now, if this is correct, what they're saying, then what do you say?
I say that they're basically just making things up. This is nothing but just a complete cover-up and appears to be a conspiracy. You cannot say that he disobeyed a lawful order. What lawful order did he obey that called for his death? What did he do? Not wearing a seatbelt? Is that a deadly offense? Is that an offense that upon which you can get the death penalty? Because that's what they rendered on that night.
And from the beginning, I would like to add that the Sarasota Sheriff's Office has been withholding evidence from the beginning. And so what they have done at this point is pretty much cover up a murder, Rodney Mitchell's murder, pure and simple. And if I may add also, since they saying now that Mr. Mitchell received or was disobeying a lawful command, to me at this point it appears to us, or at least to me, is that the Sarasota Sheriff's Office lacks sufficient knowledge of what their true defenses are. Because first we have here that the Sergeant Sassy says that, hey, he was pulling out his gun as soon as Mr. Mitchell moved his right hand. And then they come back, oh, listen, Sergeant Sassy, there was no weapon found in the car. And then he goes and changes it to, or they're trying to create that this was this alleged aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer. That didn't really pan out according to the facts, and the facts that we have, unless they have some new additional facts that they have not tendered to us, we would definitely like to see it. But according to the facts and the evidence that they submitted to us, the facts is very, very clear. And then now you have this new defense of, oh, well, we're sorry for the loss of Mr. Mitchell, but, you know, the facts confirms that, you know, he was disobeying lawful commands. Again, the facts stipulates that, in fact, he was complying with Deputy Shaw's lawful command, and that command was put the car in park. So, in order to do that, he had to remove the right hand, his right hand from the steering wheel to put it in park. He couldn't use the left hand. He couldn't use his right, knee. He had to use his right hand. And as soon as he did that, boom, boom, boom.
Well, now, this is pretty serious. In that report from the investigator, there is some information about the tape and a typed transcript. Can you share that with us?
Yes. The tape, the audio tape or any video that we have in the transcript that they submitted to us is completely different. It omits some things that was on the actual video. It deletes some things, and it doesn't include the time. It does not include the date for which the interview had occurred. Those are very important things that need to be addressed. Additionally,
as our expert has stated, it wasn't even authenticated. There's nothing in there with respect to the transcript as to who was there, when it was taken, or anything like that. It is completely open to fabrication, and that's basically what they did in this case.
And I would like to add also that on the transcript, when I asked specifically to the Sarasota Sheriff's Office to identify who was the person to transcribe the transcripts, they submitted back to me, oh, it's stamped. So I'm looking at the transcript and I see initials. So of course I submitted another request to identify what does the initial stands for, and of course I still have yet to receive that. And by the way, if we may, is there any reason why we cannot have that particular statement that the Sarasota Sheriff's Office just submitted to you?
Well, not only was it submitted to me, but it was submitted to the new staff, and I can't give you the new staff material because they didn't separate my name from the others.
Okay.
But the statement is real. As I read it, you can look at it, you can see it.
But what's disturbing, it appears to be that their first option and their first course is to basically render everything as justifiable. Everything is always justifiable. I mean, as we stated the last time we were here on our very first part of the interview, the first part, they were involved in another shooting whereby an individual was shot 70-something times, and that too was rendered justifiable shooting. Is there ever an end to what they consider justifiable shooting? What is not a justifiable shooting? If killing an individual for what you believe was driving without a seatbelt is justifiable shooting, what is not justifiable shooting? If killing an individual for pulling his hand from a steering wheel as directed to do so is justifiable shooting, what is not justifiable shooting? If killing an individual because the car moved after you started shooting into the vehicle is justifiable shooting, what is not justifiable shooting? That's what we would like Sarasota to explain to us. What is not justifiable shooting?
And I like to correct my co-counsel. It was not actually 77. It was actually 58 times rounds that was actually fired, 14 of which hit that particular individual. And I think if by all means, I would also like to cover something and give the public the truth. That's what we're here for. We're here to reveal the truth. We already know from reading the facts and the evidence, the report that they submitted to us, it is very clear to us that this was a cover-up. And by the way, that the information that I did receive from the Sarasota Sheriff's Office is the dispatch CD that is crucial here. It is absolutely crucial, which it appears to us that has never been heard or mentioned by the Sarasota Sheriff's Office, and I would like to go down that list for you. At 14:04, Deputy Shaw called out a traffic stop call out, and the traffic stop call out was 2950 US 301. One, that's the incorrect address. It was actually 2805 North Washington Court, and then two, according to the Sarasota Sheriff's own policy and procedure on traffic stop, this is insufficient. This is invalid traffic stop. Then you have 1443, Sergeant Sassy call out his traffic stop. He says, out to assist Shaw on Washington Court. That could be anywhere. And by the way, any lawful commands, I would like to point out that Sergeant Sassy himself was traveling down a one-way street, which he was doing illegally when there's a clear posted sign that says do not enter, and his lights was not on. Again, 39 seconds later, that was Sergeant Sassy call out his arrival to the scene of the Rodney Mitchell traffic stop. And then you had 15:15, shots fired, shots fired, shots fired. That's 32 seconds later after Sergeant Sassy has exited his vehicle. So Sarasota Sheriff's Office, we would like to know what other commands did he had time to comply with within 32 seconds. And that's 32 seconds they're calling out from the gas station. So you have to give time for the car to travel over 6 lanes and get to the gas station, crashing multiple cars, by the way, and then crashing into the gas station.
My question is, now that we know this, all of what we know what they say, we know what you say. What's next? Where do we go from here? Where do you go from there?
Litigation, because we've attempted to resolve this short of litigation, as they should have been ready and willing and able to do so. However, short of litigation, it appears as though they will not take us seriously. They are not willing to give justice to this young man, which they wrongfully took his life. So the only answer is litigation. They may not want to answer us now, but they will answer us.
This has been, we're 4 days, 8, 19, 11, we're 3 days from the actual 2-year anniversary. What's the condition of the mother at this time?
The mother, extremely strong woman. She believed in her faith, even though her faith was attacked by the Honorable Thomas Knight. Her faith has got her this far. It's going to continue to bring her through, and she's holding strong.
Would either of you have any last, in this last 30 seconds we have?
Well, we can guarantee Sarasota one thing. We will get justice for Rodney Mitchell.
Thank you, ladies, for stopping by again, and thank Ken for appearing with us via satellite. And Black Almanac audience, you've heard it again. This is your community. What else can we say?